you exerted some effort, and we are hoping that the event will be useful. My name is Hisham Hassanin. I'm consultant of the grain sector with the FAO. And together with me on board, I have some colleagues from FAO. And also we have Alex Zerilli online. Alex, you can follow me, can't you? Alex is our speaker. However, due to the corona COVID virus and all of the restrictions on the traveling, he was unable to be physically with us, but he is going to join us online. We are going to also follow his presentation, and I hope that we can together work in order to create a two-way event. For example, if one of the participants would like to ask, we are going to stop Alex and pose the question in Arabic. He listens to the interpretation and he is going to answer, and vice versa. We do have simultaneous interpretation equipment, and kindly use it when the presentation starts. Kindly set your channels because the headset has several channels. Kindly set your channel to the proper one, and let's all work together in order to make a success from this event. Also, you have a button in order to control your volume. In the outset, we have on board Mr. Zelalem Delbisi, officer in charge, FAO representative to Egypt. He is going to give his opening remarks.
To interrupt the presentation. Mr. Alex, he is expert in grain fumigation, and he prepared a good presentation for us. We have this presentation in two parts. We will start by this PowerPoint slide, and we will listen to the simultaneous interpretation. If you have any question, please raise your hand. You will ask your question, and the presenter will listen to the interpretation and answer you. I would prefer to interact with each other throughout the presentation in order to benefit. And no problem if you would like to speak in Arabic. We will have a break on 11:30 for prayer, and also to stretch our muscles and to get back again for an hour or less to know or watch some videos on fumigation on the ground. As said before, it, supposedly we would have Alex with us. We were expected to visit some companies, the holding company for Silas. However, we were unable to do that, and we will try to watch the videos as an alternative for the field visits.
Alex, go ahead.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Is the sound okay? Can you hear me well? Hello?
Yes, Alex,
Yes,
we
we can hear you
I
well.
can,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay.
Hisham, I'm back online. Maybe I can say a few words. This is Dmitry.
Hello, Hisham. There is Dmitry online. He is asking for a few words at the beginning.
Okay, Dimitri, you can start.
Alex, can you give me the screen, please? Second. Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Dimitri. Go ahead, Dimitri.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Dmitry Prihodko. I'm a senior economist the Investment Center division of FAO, and I'm leading this project from FAO side. The topic of today's presentation is extremely important. According to our forecasts, production of wheat in Egypt will increase from 9 million tons to 10 million tons by 2030. So we will see 1 more million ton of wheat being produced in Egypt, more every year in a 10-year perspective. At the same, and this will be matching increase in consumption of wheat from nearly 22 million tons to nearly 25 million tons. So we will see that Egyptian wheat consumption, annual wheat consumption, will increase by 3 million tons every year in 10-year perspective. This will also lead to the fact that Egyptian wheat stocks, ending wheat stocks at the end of the marketing year, will also increase from 3.6 million tons to 3.9 million tons. All it shows that there will be more wheat produced, consumed, and stored in Egypt. Therefore, the topics of today's presentation is extremely important, as it will allow us to focus on how Egyptian holding companies for silos and storage, other grain storage operators in Egypt, can effectively fumigate their grain in order to reduce grain losses. With that, I wish everyone a very fruitful day, and I hand over to Hesham.
So you can start, Alex.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope the connection is okay and the sound is good and your morning is good and your mood is good. So my name is Alexander Zrili. This is my name, or simply Alex. I'm a FAO consultant on pest control treatments, including fumigation. I'd like to encourage you to ask any questions that you might have. During the presentation, you can either interrupt me during the presentation or leave your questions after the presentation. So feel free to do that. If there are no silly questions in this topic, but still, if you would like to remain anonymous, you can make a small note and pass it over to event organizers who will then read it, and you'll have a chance to hear the answer. I would like to thank organizers of this event that despite of the global situation, they made it possible for us to meet and to share the knowledge and to get your answers to your possible questions. So let's go starting. The first slide explains what is fumigation. I'm absolutely sure that you know what is fumigation and there's no need to read it all to you. The fumigation means that the treatment is done with the gaseous chemicals, gaseous gases. Here on the screen, you can see two definitions from organizations that are offering the common understanding of the fumigation in the world. One representing public sector and the other representing private sector. And you know what FAO is, so there's no need to explain. And GAFTA is an abbreviation for Grain and Food Trade Association, which is also involved into commodity trade, mainly grain trade. So it offers this a little bit alternative definition, while FAO offers it very generally. It does not specify what kind of chemical and what kind of commodity this treatment should refer to, while fumigation, in the case of GAFTA, it offers the full description of this process. Sorry, there's something. So GAFTA specifies that the fumigation consists of the application, exposure, and dissipation of the toxic chemical in its gaseous state. So it's not just a matter of applying the gas; it also needs a time to act on the target pests, and it still needs to be removed from the product treated. Why this fumigation is required? Because standing crops, they can get infestation at any stages of throughout the process of growing, like starting from the field to various stages of processing, transportation. This process, fumigation, its purpose is to prevent the spread of pests mainly within the transfer between the national or international borders. So IPC, the International Plant Protection Convention, identified this need as to mainly prevent spread of insects in plant products in the trade. The World Trade Organization also requires, during the trade, it requires to prevent, actually, I'll read it to you. Countries require the compliance of imported agricultural products with their national sanitary and phytosanitary regulations. The primary aim of these regulations is to protect human, animal, and plant life or health from pests and diseases that may be brought in by imported agricultural products. I hope it is very clear. The new ISPM 43, titled Requirements for Use of Fumigation as a Phytosanitary Measure, has been adopted recently, just last year in April. And the purpose of this standard is to provide generic requirements for the application of fumigation as a phytosanitary measure. It's in particular, it specifies for those treatments adopted under ISPM 28, which are titled Phytosanitary Measures, Treatments for Regular Pests. It means that national plant protection organizations should ensure that the fumigant application is carried out effectively so that critical parameters are at the required level throughout the commodity to achieve the stated efficacy. Unfortunately, there is no standard for phosphine fumigation yet, but hopefully it will follow very shortly, and we will have the chance to read it and comply with it everywhere in the world. Well, normally fumigation there are four parties. We can see the four parties that are involved into fumigation normally. These are fumigation operators. They might be either state or private companies involved into the fumigation treatment. The commodity owners, also private or state companies normally involved into commodity trade activities, the storage or transport operators, also private or state entities handling or transporting goods that could be treated during either storage or transportation, like ships or silo elevators, silos. And regulatory agencies that are normally public authorities or government agencies responsible for exercising state regulation over the area of pesticide management. And these could be public health authorities or environment authorities or quarantine authorities. And each of these parties has specific approach to fumigation practice in accordance with their primary objective, which sometimes require a lot of efforts from a fumigation operator to comply with all these requirements of all these parties. I'd like to know how many of you in the room represent fumigation operators or commodity owners or storage transportation. Fortunately, I cannot see the room anymore, but it's very, who's the majority of the audience? As I understand, many of you are regulatory agencies and silos company. If you are in the room, you might be here in the storage and transportation operators. But when you start, excuse me, when you start doing fumigation, you turn into the fumigation operator and you have to comply with the rules of fumigation. It's a very important slide, and it shows here arrows that hit their specific target. Like, fumigator always targeting to control the insects, while authorities, again, depending on the authority, environmental authority, they care that the environment was not harmed. Quarantine authorities that the insects are controlled, and public health authorities, of course, they care about the users and the people, those who involved into fumigation operations or not, they would not be harmed. And the interest of the commodity owner is, of course, economical, because he cares that his commodity was not harmed, and actually the treatment itself to be carried out in the most economical and cost-effective way, and they suffer no losses. And this represents more or less the principles of the best fumigation practice, which provides an explanation for all those targets. And actually the best fumigation practice main principle as a successful treatment that results from a practical combination of all these 4 principles. The target of fumigation is the biological. All life stages of target pests controlled as a result of fumigation, but still without sacrificing the first 3. Let me read them all to you again. First, sanitary is the people inside and around the fumigation area are remain safe. Second target, environmental, that the environment inside and around the fumigation treatment area are not harmed. Economical, the product treated is not damaged in any way, and the fumigation treatment procedure is cost effective. And the biological, all life stages of target pests are controlled as a result of the fumigation treatment. The last statement is very important. You see marked with red, that all life stages, and this is the this control of all life stages is possible with fumigation only, and not fogging, because many users, or many times all the parties involved, they getting confused with the definitions and with the difference between fumigation and fogging. And they are right. It's very easy to confuse them, because the word fumigation, it actually comes from Latin fumigare, which means to smoke. And this makes it easy to confuse with the actual smoke which you can see during the use of fogging. But there's a difference that during fogging, excuse me, during fogging, contact insecticide particles are generated in the air as a smoke, fog, or mist. In contrast, fumigants act as molecules, and they will diffuse throughout the enclosure. And due to the size of contact insecticide particles, they have a very limited penetration to grain or insect harborages during fogging, thus mainly controlling the adult flying insects like mosquitoes and flies and so on, while fumigation is lethal to all life stages of target pests. Contact insecticides being suspended in the air can be applied in the open environment, while fumigants require a tightly sealed enclosure for application. Contact insecticide, they have a prolonged protective effect against after application, while fumigants act during exposure time only. This means that as soon as you degas the environment, enclosure, there will be no more toxic effect of a fumigant, and the commodity can be reinfested after the treatment. Health effects, contact insecticides, they have a low risk and low adverse effect on people who are occasionally exposed to these contact insecticides, while fumigants can cause death if proper checks or measures are not done or not carried out. And this is why service persons or operators need a different level of training when fumigators normally require a license to operate with fumigants, and just a little training is required for application of contact insecticides. Here at this slide, you can see the droplet size that vary depending on the method of generation. Here, it's the heavy rain droplet, which is more than 1,000 microns in size. When there's a light rain, the size is 300 to 1,000 microns. Fine drizzle droplet is from 100 to 300 microns. And fine mist is this size, 10 to 100 microns, and a dry fog is less than 10 microns in size. They can be produced, these smaller droplets can be produced from various methods of contact insecticide application. For example, droplets, the smallest droplets up to 5 microns that are smaller than this are produced with thermal fogging ways. Droplets from ultra low volume foggers can vary from 10 to 30 microns, and aerosol sprays generally range from 30 to 50 microns. And here in the picture, you can see a person which is doing fogging, which is often confused with fumigation. This is not fumigation. Fumigants, as we mentioned at the beginning, they act as gases. Gases are molecules, and size each molecule is very small. It's just 3 angstrom or 0.3 nanometer, which is thousands times less, tens of thousands times less than any droplet of any smallest droplet of a contact insecticides, and its action is different. It acts through the breathing system of an insect. That at any form, the insect, the breathing insect, takes the phosphine in with the breath, and the faster the activity, or the more active an insect is, the faster it is controlled. Here you can see photos of 4 stages of insects: an egg, larva, pupa, and an adult insect. The most susceptible species for phosphine are adults and larvas, while pupa and egg are less active, and that's why they are very difficult to control. We will talk about this in detail in further slides. Well, fumigants are generally defined as a chemical, as a toxical chemical which at required temperature and pressure can exist in the gaseous state in sufficient concentrations to be lethal to a given pest organism. This is a general definition, not depending on which fumigant you're using. Here you can see the list of the most widely used fumigants in various countries. They are in alphabetical order, not in the order use. I think that the most widely used one is phosphine or hydrogen phosphide. Then probably I know that in Egypt, methyl bromide is still in use. I'm not sure if you are using sulfuryl fluoride, but this becomes more and more active around the world. And the scientific world is still looking for proper alternatives to methyl bromide, which was very effective fumigant, but unfortunately, according to Montreal Protocol, we cannot use it anymore because it is ozone depleting substance. And now all users and scientists are looking for a proper alternative. I don't know if you ever heard about this ethane dinitrile. It's a very promising fumigant, very close on efficacy to methyl bromide, and it's being tried around the world now on wood, on soil, on many other areas, and it is very effective. As well as hydrogen cyanide, it's returning under various commercial names. I know that it's manufactured under Blue Fume trademark, but it's coming back to the market. Phosphine, as I said, is the most popular and widely used fumigant around the world for treatment of both static objects, if I may say and call them so, and mobile objects like ships, barges, rail cars, and other enclosures that they move from the origin point to destination point, and the static ones, those that are treated at one place from the beginning till the end. So phosphine, the main properties of phosphine that you need to know when operating with this fumigant is probably its name. It's known as hydrogen phosphide and phosphane, but as we all know, it's under the name of phosphine. At the temperature of 15 degrees centigrade, 1% of this gas in the air is equal to 10,000 ppm or 14 grams, 14.4 grams in the weight expression of this fumigant. This figure is important to remember to understand that its lower flammability limit is not far at just 1.7, above 1.7% in the air, or 17,000 ppm. There are some sources that mention 16 or 1.7 as a lower flammability limit. The other sources mention 1.8, but generally this is the average number that is shown in majority of sources. And this means that only 24 grams of phosphine may lead to dangerous situations. For example, one tablet of aluminum phosphide or magnesium phosphide, which develops 1 gram or 700 ppm, or just 0.07% in the air. If you collect them in 1 cubic meter, will give you this flammability limit, and it might be a problem. The boiling point of phosphine is minus 87.7 degrees Celsius, which is makes it a good fumigant. As you may know that methyl bromide, for example, its boiling point around 4 degrees, 3.7 or 4 degrees, which makes application of methyl bromide at lower temperatures very problematic, because it needs an evaporator in order to apply, to transform from liquid phase to gaseous state. Phosphine does not need that, and its specific gravity is 1.2. It's just slightly heavier than the air. If you remember, again, comparing with methyl bromide, it is 3 to 4 times heavier than the air, and it penetrates the commodity faster from one point when you apply it from the top, but then it's more difficult to remove the methyl bromide or to degas it, especially at the low temperatures comparing to phosphine. So its lightweight is also an advantage because it's easier to degas. Though it is slower to penetrate the commodity, easier to remove from the commodity after the treatment. But it can be affected by convectional air currents inside the commodity when the commodity is treated and it is hot. There are 3 more numbers that you need to remember or you need to know in order to operate with phosphine safely. First of them is called TLV, threshold limit value, time weight average, which is 0.3 ppm. This means that at this level of concentration, the normal 8-hour workday or 40-hour work week is possible without any adverse effect to the employees or to workers' health. The other limit, which is still permissible threshold limit value, called STEL, short-term exposure limit. This number, 1 ppm, represents the level at which workers can be exposed to this concentration within 15 minutes continuously without an adverse health effects to the health of workers. It means that if the worker remains there for longer or this concentration is higher, it will start affecting health of that worker. And the third number is 15 ppm, which is the limit for use of any cartridge or any filter designed for protection against phosphine. Only self-containing breathing apparatus should be used after that limit or when the concentration is unknown. So you need to remember these three numbers when you work with phosphine in order to protect your health.
Hey, Alex,
Yes.
Can we stop and see if there are any questions?
Are there any questions? So I assume there are no questions, or it's just needs some time for translation.
In the beginning, good morning, Mr. Alex.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Alex?
Yes, yes.
All right. I would like to ask a question regarding methyl bromide.
Yes.
Is it banned for its effect on the ozone, or there is an adverse health impact on the human health? According to my information, there is a direct adverse impact on the human health. Kindly correct me if I'm wrong and explain this information for me further. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. Any fumigants, if improperly used, they affect health of employees. So that could not be the reason for banning, because it would be not a fumigant if it does not affect organism. So it gives you an idea that the reason is different, and it is Montreal Protocol. And indeed, there are a number of substances that included into the Montreal Protocol, and methyl bromide is one of them, as its effect on the ozone layer has been noted, and that was the main reason for phasing out of methyl bromide. So the answer is not health effect, but ozone layer.
Any other questions? Any other questions regarding the last section of the presentation?
Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Alex, continue.
Okay. Okay. So here is the main fumigation idea. The idea is applicable to any fumigants, methyl bromide or phosphine, or you name any other fumigant, and it's unique. And and the meaning of this idea is to confine an effective concentration of toxic gas for sufficient time to be lethal for target pest. And two words, concentration, time, are made in bold print because this formula is the really unique. The concentration is built up by a fumigant for a specific pest, and the time is I would say identified by the enclosure, which allows this concentration not to fall below the limit. This is an example of phosphine. Safety and efficacy. There are two conditions which are critical for any fumigation. The operator needs to take care of the safety first, but when we say safety first, it means that the concentration, or C here, should remain below 0.3, the limit which we mentioned in the previous slides, which is considered to be safe for 8-hour workday or 40 hours work week. This concentration should be controlled all the time permanently during the treatment in order to provide for safety condition of any fumigation treatment, in specific with pH3 or with phosphine. At the same time, efficacy condition is also expressed in the same concentration and time, where concentration should remain above the certain minimum effective level during the minimum time depending on the concentration. This is an example which we will also consider further on, because depending on the concentration, on the temperature, I'm sorry, this concentration, time might be different depending on the temperature. We'll see it on further slides. But this slide gives you an idea of safety and efficacy conditions for fumigation. The lethal concentration should remain inside the enclosure, while safe concentration should remain outside the enclosure. And the only tool to make sure these conditions are met is monitoring. And here you can see one of the simplest tools to measure for concentration. And motto of fumigation is, if you're not monitoring, you're not fumigating. This is one of the problems of modern fumigation, that either fumigating in transit or inland, the operator takes care of the proper dosage to be applied, and then he's just simply allowing the time to elapse without controlling, but the gas may simply escape. So monitoring will prove that both concentration and time were sufficient to provide for effective concentration, for effective fumigation, and the same for safety conditions. Here at this slide, you can see the graph which shows the main stages of fumigation procedure. This is obtained by the research carried out in 1992. So these numbers are not a fantasy, but a real scenario at the temperature of 19 degrees centigrade at the depth of the commodity meters. Imagine this is a cargo hold where at the flag 1, the fumigant has been applied at the top of cargo in the hold, and then hatches are closed and the ship starts its voyage to destination to Egypt, for example. Here is the zero concentration at zero time, and then ship starts to move day 1 at the depth of 10 meters. There's still no gas. This curve would look different for the depth of 1 meter or 5 meters. It would rise earlier here and rise higher because concentration rises faster. But we are now looking at the depth of 10 meters, and it starts to appear at that depth only on the 3rd day of the voyage, and then it is slowly rises up to the level of 300 ppm, which is the level for effective concentration, and then remains there or keeps rising until the maximum of approximately 600 ppm, 650 ppm on the day 7. and then it slowly decreases due to gas law or escape from the holds. And here we reach the target of fumigation, which is 5 days, from day 5 to day 10, 5 days, where we can start degassing the flag 3. I skipped the flag 2, which represents here the time count where the effective concentration starts. It means that there's no reason to start calculating the exposure until the effective level of concentration has been reached. And as soon as it is reached here, on the day 5, we start counting 5 days. And then after passing these 5 days, here is the exposure. We have a right to interrupt, though it is higher than 600 or higher than 500 ppm, we can start degassing. And then the concentration of gas slowly falls down on the day 11 and so on until it reaches 0, confirmed by instruments. And this represents flag 4, where clearance certificate should be issued, and it is a safe condition for the cargo to discharge. These flags are called first application, the second equilibrium, or this is the point where the gas is equal throughout the whole commodity. That's why it is called equilibrium. Then third flag, as I said, end of exposure, or CTP, concentration count stops and the ventilation can be started, and flag 4, clearance. But you can also see this light blue curve, which represents the real life, where, for example, a ship arrives from the Black Sea area on the 5th day. The voyage is very short. And here it means that as soon as the concentration reached this level, it starts to ventilate, and the concentration starts to drop. It means that in this scenario, fumigation will not be effective under any conditions. This might cause a lot of questions, and I take another pause for your questions, but we will consider it in our presentation further on. It is explained. You have any questions in the room? Okay, let's proceed then. Fumigation efficacy management.
Please, we have a question here in the previous slide.
Yes.
If you can go back one slide. Mr. Alex?
Yes, yes, I'm back. I'm already switched back. Maybe there's a delay, but I'm...
This one, yes, this one. You said that the gas is pressured and it moves from the day 1 until day 5. It wasn't appeared. It didn't appear, and then after day 5 it appeared.
Correct.
And then it started to interact from day 5. My information is that when the ship is moving from Russia to Egypt, it takes 7 days. You are saying that the certificate is issued on day 10 after ventilation and making sure that the shipment is free of any pest. Would you please just verify the information with regard to fumigation certificate? Is the fumigation certificate is issued after the ship is arrived at the port or during the shipping or when exactly?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, this is a very good question. And I prepared actually an answer to these questions in my presentation further on. But there is a big difference between fumigation in transit and fumigation inland. And this is why I gave this difference to you earlier. Talking about fumigation certificate is, it is very different from for the enclosure or for the object treated. Either it is inland. For example, let's compare the treatment with methyl bromide and phosphine. When methyl bromide treatment of in ships has been carried out in the previous years until I think 1980s, the ship had to wait in the port until the exposure completion, and crew used to be landed or evacuated from the ship, which was causing delays to ships, and shippers were not happy with that. And with the invention of phosphine for in-transit fumigation, this problem was solved, and and uh, but the problem with issuance of the certificate is remains, and it is with phosphine fumigation. It's issued at the beginning of treatment, but the title still remains the same, fumigation certificate, though it cannot confirm that the goods are free from insects and from gas, comparing to methyl bromide. So with phosphine fumigation certificates, you get the information on the proper fumigant that has been used and the dosage used, but it doesn't say whether or not it was effective or not effective. I don't know if it answers to your question, but again, this graph represents the depth of the hold at 10 meters, okay, 10 meters. And we are talking about passive fumigation. We will discuss how to get rid of this delay with use of recirculation, and it will bring the concentration higher on the earlier time. So we are moving forward, and you will see the answers to these questions in further in this presentation. So efficacy management. In order to provide for effective fumigation of your enclosures, let's remember that fumigation was recognized a phytosanitary treatment, and we may compare the phytosanitary, meaning the doctor of plants. He needs to carry out a proper analysis or establish the proper, in order to establish a proper diagnosis to treat this commodity, either being in a silo bean or in a ship hold or any other commodity. The important factors are: what is the target organism? Is there a hidden infestation in plates? Are there mites infesting the commodity? In order to choose the proper dosage and concentration of a fumigant, then what's needed to be considered is the volume of enclosure, because the fumigant is always applied based on the volume of enclosure and not the quantity of goods to be treated inside that commodity. Gas tightness conditions is the key factor to keep the gas concentration inside that commodity. So this property of the enclosure should be also considered by the operator in order to be able to provide the necessary treatment. The temperature and moisture are also very important for those for the efficacy of treatment, because according to many manufacturers of fumigants, either I'm talking about aluminum phosphide fumigants and magnesium phosphide fumigants that have different activity of gas release at the temperatures. For example, at temperature 4.4 or around 5 degrees centigrade, neither fumigant nor insects are not sufficient. I mean, the fumigant is not developing, not releasing, the tablet is not releasing the gas in sufficient concentration, and the insects are not active to take in the gas. So the temperatures is very important, as well as moisture. For example, release of phosphine really depends on the moisture of moisture inside the grain and in the air. So those also should be considered. So, efficacy management. The main tools of the operator when he took the proper inspection of the object, and he knows all those points that we mentioned in the previous slide, he needs to come up with a proper choice of a fumigant. In particular, its quality, its dosage, its method of application in order to treat that infestation in the commodity. Then if the enclosure is leaky, then he needs to offer the measures from leakage from the loss of the fumigant. The gas penetration measures should be also taken into consideration, because if the commodity is deep enough, the gas will not penetrate to the bottom, as we just mentioned, and it needs help, for example, in use of recirculation system that will just force the gas to the deeper layers of the commodity in order to deliver the required concentration into lower layers. And again, monitoring. These 4 measures should be proposed to every client, and all these measures will be sufficient to treat any infestation situation. And on further sections of this presentation, we will consider each of these steps in more details. Here we start with choice of a fumigant. We have enough time. It's 12 o'clock now. Are we having a break, Hisham?
Hello, Alex. We still have like 25 minutes.
25 minutes. Okay, I suggest to finish this session, to have a break after we consider the fumigant. There are a few slides explaining the specification of work with fumigants. Here you can see the list of various manufacturers of phosphine or metal phosphide releasing phosphine. And those are mainly aluminum phosphide, with a few exceptions like magtoxin, for example, or magnafos. These two are magnesium phosphide fumigants. The rest is the aluminum phosphide fumigants, mainly, as you can see here, from China. And the difference between them is normally the price. And as you can realize that the cheap is not always best. So when choosing the fumigant out of this list, I would not recommend to choose the cheapest, because you will not get the proper result. Here, the slide, you can see the reaction of a tablet, which and here are formulas for aluminum phosphide and magnesium fumigants that in a contact with the air, with the moisture from air, release phosphine in both cases and leaving aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide in case of magnesium phosphide. But generally, the action is very similar, and in this form they are available from many suppliers on the market and manufacturers, as we mentioned, in China and Germany and Brazil and India and so on. With a difference that magnesium works slightly better in colder climates. And the metal phosphine dosing is always based on a volume, not on the quantity of the product inside the commodity, inside the enclosure. Here you can see 3 examples of the same silo, which is 50 metric tons capacity or 65 cubic meters, if an expression of volume. And in order to treat the empty silo, you'll need 100 tablets or 300 grams because each tablet weighs 3 grams. So multiplying 100 by 3, we get 300 tablets. It will give you the concentration of 1.5 grams of phosphine inside this enclosure, which is considered to be an effective concentration. And it does not depend whether this silo is half full or full. The concentration remains the same because we are talking about volume and not the product. At this photos, you can see the reaction of phosphine in high moisture conditions. Sometimes when the product is wet or after application, there are moisture condensation on the walls or droplets of water that get in contact with fumigant, it can cause fire or even explosion. And these are the samples of examples which illustrate that it's not just a fairy tale, but it's real case scenarios. Here, this slide, you can see that a silo or grain storage caught fire. First it was exploded and then caught fire because of the rain, which was droplets were falling on the surface. And here, these are 3 various cases of explosions in ships. All of them are related with too high humidity of moisture content of the cargo. And here, the other side of this medal is the dry conditions or improper application. When no matter how long the voyage is, the tablet may remain undecomposed. Here in this case, the fume sleeve, it was containing too much tablets inside and arrived to destination port still being very active because it was improperly applied. It needs to be a smaller quantity of the fumigant. Here, it's just loose tablets, but with the same problem due to very dry cargo. The tablets remained undecomposed. And of course, all these cases are related with huge losses and contamination of goods and other problems. One of the forms formulations of this aluminum phosphide or magnesium phosphide fumigants, which is a pre-pack form, allows to avoid these problems in many cases because, for example, this bag, as you can see, or plate, it's containing granules of aluminum or magnesium phosphide inside, and when it is dosed properly in order to provide for a fast reaction without any residues. So, and after its reaction is finished, it can be easily removed from the cargo without leaving any residues in the cargo. And when magnesium phosphide is inside, is used, its reaction is complete without ammonia, which is normally a warning agent at the reaction of aluminum phosphide. So magnesium phosphide plates can be used for fumigation of green plants, for example. This is one more form, liquefied phosphine, which is becoming more popular these days. These are two cylinders with liquefied phosphine, one in a mixture with inert gas with CO2. It could be nitrogen as well. There are a few manufacturers offering the diluted, actually the mixture of two gases. This cylinder is called EcoFume, for example. It provides for 31 kilo of 2% phosphine and 98% CO2 mixture inside the cylinder. Its application very simple, just a simple hose is connected and it's dispensed into the commodity, and one cylinder is sufficient to fumigate 1,100 cubic meters of the enclosure. And the second one is the pure phosphine gas, liquefied gas of 22 kilograms per cylinder. Excuse me, but it requires special equipment for dispensing. It cannot be used as simple as this one, because the Horn kilophos system is required to dilute it safely to the safe levels of below 18,000 ppm in order to fumigate a silo or any other object. But the difference is that these products are for mainly used for medium or small size volumes, and this is for large volumes, because one cylinder is sufficient for 40,000 metric tons capacity to fumigate it with at the concentration of 400 ppm. Here you can see the example of comparison, fumigation, an object within 100 hours exposure time with metal phosphides or solid fumigants in the yellow curve, and the blue curve represents the EcoFume. For example, the same 300 ppm effective concentration can be achieved at the application point of aluminum phosphide, after application of aluminum phosphide, after about 20 hours in case of aluminum phosphide or any other metal phosphides. And in case of EcoFume, it's simply injected slightly above the minimum level just to compensate for loss and to see how it falls through the monitoring, and at the necessary point where it goes to the lower limit to top it up again. So this blue curve shows 4 top ups of EcoFume during 100 hours, which means very precise process and controlled process, that after 100 hours it is degassed, while aluminum phosphide, after a climb of up to nearly 1000 ppm, it starts to lose the gas, and finally falling below the effective concentration on the after 60 hours or so. And the effective time of fumigation is just 40 hours. So it shows that either enclosure should be more gas tight, or you need to compensate for a gas concentration loss. This is this next section, sealing. I went a little bit faster than expected. We have 15 minutes to go, and this will be not enough to complete this section 2. Would you like to go for a break now, or we continue? Hesham?
Okay, we have just comments and we'll stop by.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start. Sealing. This section will explain the importance.
Alex,
Yes,
can you stop, please?
yes.
Just hearing some questions and comments.
All right, go ahead.
Do you have any questions? Hello? I would like to ask about how the gas is applied in the silo, is distributed, and the silo is empty. How to distribute the tablets to make sure that the whole volume is under fumigation.
I mean the empty silo. Once again, the question, are you talking about empty silo or a full, or what case? If the silo there is really no matter where you put the fumigant. It should be inside the silo.
I understand that we will see after the break the process in the silo by video. I need to make use of the time. I have a comment with regard to engineer Yasser question, the fumigation certificate. I'd like to clarify that any certificate is including the process supervision. The inspection is for an inspection. The fumigation is that to indicate the fumigation process was applied. If you read the fumigation certificate, you will find a recommendation to visualize the silo or the enclosure after 72 hours. It is supervised by the operator of fumigation. As for the Black Sea shipping, 5 days, 3 days, or 7 days. It depends on different factors. The concentration of the fumigant, are they all full of tablets, or there is a part which is empty? Also, the circulation of air within the silo itself. We can investigate this through different measures. If you want to verify the fumigation process, you take a sample to consider the remnant of the substance, also the efficacy of the process for the food safety, there are measures to be taken in order to check if the fumigation was applied properly. Another comment with regard to the presentation and we have recorded video. We are going to send you the video via email. That means you will get the material.
Okay. Seems like we had problems with
I'd like
internet.
to ask you, Mr. Alex, about when we receive the silos and the number of fumigation application in order to make sure that fumigation is done properly. Do we need to do it in different times? And what about the intervals between each time of application?
Mhm. Okay, the questions are clear. Majority of answers will be available in further sections of my presentation. Now we started one by one. The first section was explaining the fumigant qualities. The second will explain sealing, and the third will show the importance of recirculation and how the gas penetrates into the commodity. You'll see it in more details. And actually, you will see all majority of your question, of the answers to your question in the presentation in the next session, probably after the break. So in order not to delay you, I will suggest to complete the presentation after the break, and then we'll come back to your questions, whether they are answered or not. Is that okay?
We will take a break now
Yes.
and we will come back at 12. You will have 30 minutes. Please come back on time. As for the group photo, we will try to take it during the break in the lobby. Hopefully, you have to wear the mask. This is a requirement.
Hello, Stephanie. Stephanie,
Yes, I'm here.
can you stop recording?
Sure, of course.
Do fumigation is crucially important. That's the key factor of fumigation. It's from the point of view of best fumigation practice, it's affecting all four principles that we mentioned at the beginning. Uh, from the
So
sanit.
hold on a second, Alex.
Okay.
So go ahead, Alex.
Okay.
You can start over.
Okay. Hope the sound is okay now. So gas tightness. It's the paramount factor for fumigation efficacy because of the mentioned at the beginning factors of best fumigation practice, it affects all four of these factors. For example, it helps to avoid potential harm to people and non-target organisms, thus covering both these two principles of sanitary and ecological principles. Then economical, it helps to prevent the expensive fumigant waste, and phytosanitary, of course, it helps to maintain the proper concentration. Here at the graph, you can see the example of fumigation in well-sealed and non-sealed fumigation enclosure. It says cargo holds, but it relates to any of the gas tight chambers. For example, as we've seen from the previous slides, after application, the gas slowly decreases. Concentration gas slowly decreases after application, reaching the effective concentration, and then the exposure time starts, well, it should remain for a minimum time until the effective exposure is over, and then to start ventilating. So this blue curve represents the effective case scenario, while the yellow one shows fumigation of a leaky enclosure, whether poorly gas sealed cargo holds or a silo or any other enclosure. When concentration rises and at the maximum, it does not even reach the effective concentration and then starts to descend, losing the gas and thus failing fumigation. So it is a paramount importance to have the enclosure sealed gas tight. We have a few options for sealing. For example, here we have an example of bagged grain, but you know, as far as I know, in Egypt, the bulk system is more used. But the principle remains the same, that if your commodity is stored somewhere, like here an example of stacks, you'll need to cover it gas tight in order to keep gas from dissipating in the air and to allowing to build up the proper concentration. And those methods of sealing are normally available in two options, one in temporary or in permanent structures. Any temporary structure could be a gas proof sheets or tarpaulins or any other kind of material that prevents the gas from escape. And the permanent structures like warehouses and so on, they still leaky from the construction point, and they need to be sealed before fumigation. Here's an example of the volume to be used for fumigation if the bagged commodity or even the bulk commodity is stored somewhere in a silo. In that case, it will be reaching from wall to wall, and then you'll need to cover the top in order to prevent from leakages through the roof and other joints. But here is an example when you can insulate the commodity separately, and if it is a bag stock, you need to take care of the proper sealing at the floor, and then to put the gas tight sheets and to make them gas tight. In that case, the volume will be much smaller if you fumigate, for example, this case of a commodity inside a big shed or a warehouse where you need to seal it all. You see the comparison between these two options, that if you are fumigating the same stack inside the warehouse, then you'll need to take care of all the perimeter, sealing all windows, vents, doors, and so on. But then your volume of fumigation will increase, and thus you will need to increase the dosage of a fumigant. And the last option, if you are unable to seal the enclosure, then you will need to put the whole enclosure under the gas-proof sheets, but this will increase your required effective dosage even further. Here at this slides, you can see examples of fumigation of a building. It doesn't mean that there are commodities fumigated, but it just gives you an example that such option is available. This photo represents grain cocoons also available on the market, which are initially constructed gas tight. They consist of two separable parts. One is the bottom part, which can be opened, and then the commodity or bags could be stored at the lower part up to the stock, and then covered with the upper part zipped, gas tight, and then fumigated. Though these cocoons are made for long-term, for low permeability to air and moisture, enabling chemical-free storage and long-term preservation. It means that in these cocoons, you don't even need to use fumigants because the CO2 built up suffocates the insects. But this option also provides for proper fumigation conditions. These are the photos which just demonstrate that the perimeter of a silo bin, metal bin, how they are sealed, and this is nothing new, but just to mention that those openings that used for ventilation should be sealed from outside in order to enable ventilation of this storage after the exposure time, just opening the doors and vents from outside without entering the building and not endangering the your personnel. This is another example of sealing the metal silos, which is available in Australia, and it's been on the market for quite a time, and its main purpose is to make the gas silos, the silos warehouses gas tight in order to fit to the new standard AS2627, the AX2628, sorry. This one is shown here in the right bottom corner, which means that any silo should be gas tight in order to be fumigated, and it should pass through the air pressure test within 5 minutes. We will talk about it later. But the general idea is in putting the sealant and the membrane coating on the all joints in order to prevent the gas from escape. It's a very long procedure, starting from washing the surfaces and then covering with, I think, 5 layers or so, various coatings, which then last for a number of years, and it still holds the gas, resisting the sun, corrosion, and it stays intact for a long period of time. The gas pressure test that I mentioned in the previous slide, it's the new Australian standard AS2628 that provides the industry with a benchmark for pressure of sealable silos. Any silo needs to be pressure tested to ensure it is gas tight. It's a 5-minute half-life pressure test, which should show that the silo is suitable for fumigation. How this test is done? May consider it on example of same pressure test for containers. The instruments required for pressure test include the simple YouTube manometer or even the purpose-made instrument looking like a YouTube manometer, like a tube, and a stop and the pressure gauge. You need to pressurize the container and to measure a drop of this concentration after you stop pumping it. Here's the procedure. Whatever your instruments are, the procedure is the following. You need to pressurize the container to the pressure of 250 pascals. Then you need to turn off the compressor and watch the pressure decaying to 200 pascals. And this is where you need to start measuring the time in seconds when it reaches 200 pascals. And after that, the drop below up to 100 pascals in seconds. And then you enter table with the results that if the time of this drop from 200 pascals to 100 pascals is less than 10 seconds, the container fails the test and must be enclosed under gas-proof sheets. If the time is equal or more than 10 seconds, the container may be fumigated without cover. And if container cannot be even pressurized up to 250, the starting pressure test, it fails the test and must be enclosed under the gas-proof sheets. The very similar procedure is applied to silos, but with the difference that the time for a half loss should be 5 minutes for new silos and not less than 5 minutes, and not less than 3 minutes for old silos, but it's a rule now in Australia. Talking about gas tightness of transportation units like the ship, for example, ship holds, they also have these requirements, though they are built as watertight, and in some cases, actually in each case, the ship register should ensure that hatch covers are gas tight, and there is a number of tests used to make sure that the water will not get into the cargo. And there are various tests available, like choke test, light test, smoke test, and hose test, which we see here when the high pressure water is directed into joints of the hatches, and then the inspector sees if there are any leakages and then makes them gas tight if there is a leakage. But those tests, including even the ultrasonic test, which is very popular, they represent the water tightness probably of the perimeter of hatch covers, but those tests doesn't mean that the hatch covers or cargo holds or any other enclosure is gas tight, because gas does not penetrate cracks on the internal surface only. The gas may also penetrate through cable lines, through many other waterways under the deck, and still be dangerous. So the only representative test for gas tightness is still air pressure or vacuum test. Here is the example how the ultrasonic test works. For example, the sonic waves produced by a transmitter placed within an enclosed space and released through the smallest openings. Thus, any leakage of the sound may then be detected by a receiver or detector between frequencies 36.7 and 40 kilohertz, and then convert them into audio frequencies or into digitally reproduced information. Thus, this test again can show that the enclosure is leaky or not, but again, it relates more to water than to gas, because some of the surfaces of cargo holds or a silo are unreachable for the ultrasonic. And here is the familiar graphs, but this time they represent various depth of the commodity and the registration of the gas penetration with time. Here, the blue curve represents a depth of 5 meters. The red one, the depth of 10 meters of the commodity, and the green one represents the 15 meters depth of the commodity. And the fumigation, excuse me, the fumigation was carried out at the temperatures of 19 degrees centigrade with passive fumigation. Excuse me. While on the surface, the gas reaches approximately 150 ppm of the first day and reaches the minimum effective concentration of 300 after 1.5 days. Then on the depth of 10 meters, it requires 5 days, as we mentioned before. And for the depth of 15 meters, it reaches the effective concentration only on the 8 days. So, but this is the behavior of the fumigant at the temperature of 19 degrees. But let's see what happens if the temperature changes. For example, at the temperature of 27 degrees Celsius, the movement of air inside the cargo hold is absolutely different, and it prevents the gas from penetrating deeper than 5 meters. The 5 meters, as we can see the curve, we can compare with the previous slide. It's slightly less, up to 700, comparing to the depth, to the temperature of 19 degrees. So the maximum concentration of 700 is reached at the depth of 5 meters. At the same time, it never comes to the effective level deeper than that, for example, 10 meters or 15 meters. So this proves that fumigation, passive fumigation without use of recirculation system for deep cargo holds is just ineffective, and the recirculation system is required. This is the table of mandatory minimum exposure times provided by Fumigation Handbook of Federal Grain Inspection and the USDA, which offers us the minimum exposure time in days depending on the depth of cargo holds. For example, there are columns showing less than 6 meters. The second shows 6 to 12 meters depth, third one from 12 to 20, and the last above 20 meters. Let's consider this depth 12 to 20 because it's the most usual depth for cargo holds of handy sizes and shipments to Egypt. For example, what's the minimum time? If the fumigant is applied at the surface at this dosage of 1.6 grams, then it is not acceptable because it does not reach the bottom, and for obvious reasons, which we just discussed in the previous slide. At the same time, when the subsurface application, meaning that the gas is, the fumigant is applied or probed under the surface, under the cargo surface, then the exposure, the minimum effective exposure time is 18 days. While we add a recirculation to the subsurface application, this time is divided by 2, is shorter, exactly twice, 9 days. It means that effective fumigation with recirculation and subsurface application of these tonnages of fumigants are effective during this time. But what we need to do in order to shorten it further is to change the fumigant. And we need to apply phosphine aluminum phosphide pellets, not tablets like here, but pellets, which are smaller in size, and they develop the gas, release the gas much faster comparing to tablets. Tablets, for example, they weigh 3 grams and pellets 0.6 grams. They are smaller in size, and thus they develop the gas faster, which is then distributed with recirculation system on the bottom. Same goes with another fumigant called magnesium phosphide, which is reacts faster. And in this case, the exposure time is really minimal because of the two: fast gas release and the fast gas penetration. Let's see what's the voyage time from the Black Sea to Egypt. We know that it's the distance from, for example, from Odessa to Istanbul is 455 miles. And at the speed of 10 knots, it's just 34 hours or 1.5 days. And imagine that this time is at the winter season, from November till March, is normally temperatures at this time is around 0 degrees centigrade, which means that fumigation, neither fumigant is not acting properly, non-insects breathe intensively. So this is very ineffective part for fumigation. And it starts only from Istanbul when the temperatures rise above 0 and climbs up. The remaining part of the voyage is around it's Istanbul, Alexandria, 720 nautical miles, which giving us another 72 hours of the voyage where the fumigation is effective. So actually, with recirculation and proper fumigant, this voyage is still sufficient for effective fumigation, but not with a passive or without recirculation and improper fumigant. Let's see how it works for passive fumigation or without recirculation. The gas applied from the surface, it moves down very slowly under its own gravity, and after 5-7 days, some phosphine is reaching the depth of 10 to 12 meters in effective concentrations. And deeper than 12 meters, it's not reaching in effective concentration, however time the voyage is. It is not recommended for shipments over 10,000 tons or for holds deeper than 12 meters. Then the solution to fumigate cargo holds deeper than 12 meters is recirculation, because it distributes the gas down. It forces the high concentration of phosphine from the upper part of the cargo hold down through the tubing, through the solid tubing, and then distributes it at the bottom of the hold, thus shortening the exposure time. So this is the must for fumigation of cargo holds deeper than 12 meters, or if the fumigation is in the silos or any other deep commodities, then recirculation is required. Let's see the behavior of the gas and the air movement inside the silo beans. When we use the recirculation in silo, again, the principles remains the same. The gas, which could be applied here somewhere at the bottom, desirably after the fan. There might be a few points of injection if it is a liquefied gas or a generated gas. If it is a solid formulation, it still should be applied at the surface from the lids, from the vents. And then the generated gas is still sent and forced to the bottom, and thus recirculation continues. But depending on the weather conditions, if the air outside temperature is cold or warm, the air movement, the natural or convectional air movement inside each silo may affect the gas circulation. For example, when the walls are colder, then the air movement, it is very slow, but it still tends to draw the gas down. And then in the middle, the temperature of the grain is higher. It is rising here at the middle of the silo. And here we have, as a result, a higher moisture contact. And on the contrary, if the air is warm, then the commodity has become heated from the sides and making recirculation in the other side. I mean, comparing to this system, that the gas is rising with the hot air streams alongside the walls, and then when it reaches the middle, which is cooler, it's getting back down to the commodity mass, and the moisture in this case is created at the bottom. This is another schedule for smaller volumes of a commodity, also provided by the Fumigation Handbook of the Federal Grain Inspection Services of USDA, and it offers the same level of minimum 300 parts per million for phosphine to be maintained within the commodity during various times. For example, at the temperatures of above 20 degrees Celsius, the minimum exposure time should be 96 hours. It means that 4 days, the fumigator needs to register this concentration, not below this concentration, in order to say that this fumigation was effective. If the temperatures are lower, from 15 to 20, then the same concentration should be maintained with a longer time, 144 hours. But if the temperature is even
Alex, can you hear me? Alex, can you hear me? Alex, can you hear me?
We lost Alex. I will write to him.
Can you hear me? Alex?
Just one moment, Alex will rejoin the meeting.
again, briefly about this slide, the main idea, which is proposed by the Fumigation Handbook for smaller batches, if I may say so, commodities, like containers or smaller than ship holds, because ship holds is a large commodity bulks. For the smaller commodities, it's called Commodity Operation Fumigation Protocol. Just a second, let me find the pointer here. It is called Commodity Operations Fumigation Protocol. It's a very common protocol in the US. And the main idea of it is that 300 ppm should be maintained, and it means not applied, but controlled, because you may apply higher than that, but this is the minimum. And the minimum of this concentration should be maintained inside the enclosure, like a container, depending on the temperature, either within 96 hours minimum if the temperature is about 20. And if the temperature is between 15 to 20 degrees Celsius, then the minimum time is 144 hours. And if the temperature is even less than 15 degrees centigrade, then this concentration should be kept as long as possible past the minimum of 144 hours. And that's a requirement of the Commodity Operations Fumigation Protocol. For you to know that this is the optimum effective concentration. Actually, it starts to affect or kill or to control insects in lower concentrations, starting from 50 or 30 ppm. But in that case, much longer exposure times are required, weeks. And this is the optimum. Sometimes you may find in other standards different levels, but it will affect the time of exposure. But this correlation should still remain, which is called CT, concentration time, which we mentioned at the very beginning of our presentation. And here we are switching to the section 4 of the monitoring. This is like your feedback on what you're doing with the concentration in both inside and outside the commodity. There's a huge variety of different electronic and other devices that measure concentration. And the main split of, is that they may measure concentration in the TLV, or threshold limit value, or CPT, concentration time product ranges, which are important. This CPT is important to monitor inside the enclosure, and TLV is important to control for safety outside. That's what we mentioned in the beginning, the formula. So the simplest detector is the tube, which is changing the color. Normally for measuring, you break off 2 tips and insert into a pump, then dragging the air sample through this tube, you get the discoloration line, which you can then measure, and each line or each measurement corresponds to a certain concentration of gas, which you can read out of the tube and say what is the concentration inside or outside. Another very useful kind of tube, it's called dosimeter tube, and it is used without pump. It's just 2 tips are breaking off, and it starts to change color during the time, and it accumulates the dosage. It means that, for example, you can see this tube is taken from the live use. It shows 180,000 parts per million hours. It means that here is the reading, and it was taken out of the premise or enclosure after 7 days, 168 hours. So dividing this number, 180,000 ppm hours, we get the average concentration of 1071 ppm, which is fairly good concentration to control any insects. So this is a very useful tool. The other type of monitors is electronic. The electronic monitors or detectors are good for the fast data exchange that you can read out very easily, connecting to the computer or just reading it on the screen, and it gives you immediate numbers without any need of calculations. And they are also can be split to the same categories. They measure concentrations outside and inside. For example, this one, Draeger, is probably most popularly used as a beeper for high concentrations when you operate in or you enter the area with high gas concentration. That gives you ODL signal, and it bips and starts to send you signal lights that you are entering the danger area. While others, they will just give you the readings and may also warn you if you set the certain level that you need to know. The device can reaching that level, the device can alert you. This is another example of portable wireless devices or monitors that can be used and already used in some cases for fumigation in ships or in silos. The two colors where this with the dots, red and the yellow ones, you can see the places of installation of such monitors that monitor for TLV, threshold limit value, or a safe level inside the accommodation, while the red ones are monitoring for proper effective concentrations in order to see whether or not the treatment is good. Thus, we have three various sorts of devices. One of the first category is measuring local concentration in real time, like the tubes, the detector tubes with pumps, or the portable electronic devices that you carry out with you. Those give you immediate information and warning in real time on site. The other devices, also electronic, but they send this signal through the cloud to wherever you are. For example, the ship sails in the other area of the globe, and you still receive your signal or readings of gas in your office or wherever you are on your phone. You can see that, for example, concentration starts to fall in hold 3, and to send a warning to captain saying that watch out, there is a gas leak around called hold 3, be careful. And then the signal to destination saying that the exposure time in this particular hold should be extended, prolonged, in order to provide for proper treatment. So these devices could be very useful for the operators, and they already are used in other parts of the world. And then after this 4 sections, I may ask if there are any questions, because the operator, having all those 4 sections in their possession, and they have the full control over the process of treatment, and they need to come up with the fumigation plan to their client, or to themselves if they do the job for themselves. But the minimum information or the tools that they operate were listed in the 4 previous sections: the proper fumigant, the proper sealing, gas penetration, and monitoring. And normally, if it is a service provider, the service provider should come back to his client and with a final offer, and it should include the minimum information on the conclusion of the object suitability for fumigation or methods for sealing if it is required, with the final fumigation plan showing the name, the dosage rate, the fumigant formulation, the treatment duration, and to indicate possible changes that he might have given at the beginning of treatment. It's a separate issue. He also may come up with the safety measures to be maintained either during voyage or during the treatment, because the fumigator does not necessarily stay with an object fumigated like the silo. He comes to apply the fumigant, and then taking the safety precautions, he may leave the object until degassing. So these safety measures should be also informed to his client. And the last, he also needs to take care about gas analyzing and respiratory protection equipment available for the ship or for the silo. And the last, he needs to inform the limits of his responsibilities. He needs to say if he takes care of the full procedure of fumigation inland for a silo, for example, he needs to say that I'm coming back to degas and to take the gas out, to take care of the permission to discharge or to handle the goods. He needs to put this line and to inform the client that his job is not over. And in case of in-transit fumigation, normally if the ship leaves the country, the port, then the fumigator needs to say that I've done my obligations on application of a proper fumigant, but then I cannot follow the ship. And if you need to discharge it safely, the certain measures should be followed, and this information should be handed over to the client as well. And the last is a commercial terms, of course. This is the quote from the Code of Practice of FAO, Phytosanitary Association of Ukraine, that has been composed at the request of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and with the support of European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. Generally, it proposes the certain guidelines for fumigation from the moment of inquiry for fumigation and throughout the full process, offering all paperworks and stages, what should be done until the last submission of documents back to the client. This code, as I said, has been developed at the request of FAO, provides for practical recommendations, and used for certification of companies in Ukraine, those who work under this code. And here is the QR code. You can check it with your phones, how it works. It will show you that the company, or for example, there is a certificate that contains this code, and by scanning it, you can see that the company is working in compliance with this code. So now I'm taking a pause for any questions, because there are a number of documents that the fumigation operators should comply with. Would you want me to go on, or you have any questions? Cannot hear you, the echo.
Are there any remittances of the fumigation tablets after completing the process? If the answer is yes, I would like to know how much it affects the human health.
Yeah, okay. Then I go on because it's next slides. So let me then finish.
Did you hear me, Alex? Did you hear the question, Alex? Are any remittances of the fumigation tablets after completing the process remaining? If the
Yes.
answer is yes, I would like to know how far it affects human health.
Yes. Okay.
I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
You already clarified the effect of the fumigators on the ozone and the human health.
Yes.
Are there any natural procedures that could actually affect the pests, such as using a low temperature during the winter season?
Yes. Yes, there are. I'll start one by one. Actually, answer to your first question is in the three slides from now. So I will continue the presentation, and then I will get back to your question. Okay? Because it's a very good question because you were listening carefully.
Alex, what about the second question on low temperatures and freezing and how it affects the insects?
Insects, yes. Of course, temperatures are creatures living, and low temperatures are used to control pests as well. There are numbers of studies in that respect, but they are called physical methods of control. The topic of this presentation is chemical methods of control. You know, there are many ways of controlling insects, including irradiation and including physical, like heat or cool. I think that these recommendations will be soon available even from FAO, because slowly those recommendations under ISPM 28, they are uploaded to the web portal of FAO and European International Plant Protection Convention. It already offers a few methods with various treatments, including heat and including cooling and other methods. But to give you this idea, we need a separate presentation. Now we're talking about chemical. This method is called defrosting or heating, if the heat is used. So let me answer your first question. Other guidelines available in respect of use of chemical method, namely fumigation, are outlined in International Code of Conduct on Pesticide Management, which was approved in June 2013. And it's a general guideline that establishes voluntary standards for public and private entities, and particularly it offers measures. Let me read it to you. Objectives in this code are established to voluntary standards of conduct for all public and private entities engaged or associated with the management of pesticide, particularly where there is inadequate or no national legislation to regulate pests. This is the commonly known recommendations of IMO for safe use of pesticides in ships. It generally covers the aspects of safety, use of pesticides in ships, and it's focused on the absence of adverse effects on ships, personnel, while during in transit fumigation. This, in particular, this point 3327, it prescribes the equipment that should be carried out on board of each ship in order to provide for safety conditions. There was another update of the Marine Safety Committee Circular 1396 in 2011, which outlined general safety precautions for fumigation, and the main changes provided by this circular were specifically focused on discharging part, because the practice shows that this is the most neglected part of the treatment. And this part specifies that the ship personnel should not handle fumigants, and such operations should be carried out by only qualified operators. And then the aeration of the cargo must be completed and a clearance certificate issued before personnel are permitted to enter. And when phosphine generating formulations are used to fumigate, any collected residue may ignite. This just strikes that shows that the professionals should be handling the fumigants. And the mentioned party at the very beginning of the presentation were pointing that a fumigation operator is influenced by many parties, and sometimes it is rushed to do some steps. For example, when the ship arrives, we all understand that there is a queue, there is a delay possible, but safety measures should not be sacrificed. And this is why this recommendations, they focus the attention that still safety measures should be complied with. The next regulation that should be mentioned is the GAFTA fumigation standard, which is also relatively new standard, and it is also mainly focused on safety issues. Point 97, for example, says that the master fumigator or relevant authorities should not allow discharge of cargo to commence until it is satisfied that the cargo has been correctly ventilated, and that only requirements that any other requirements of discharge port have been met. So it refers back to IMO recommendations, and again, it is focused on the safety issues. Another code of practice of the International Maritime Fumigation Organization, and it's also dedicated to fumigation in port, in transit, in ship cargo holds. Well, it offers also guidelines, but in this case, in comparison to previous standards, it's focused not on the safety aspects, but on efficacy. And it provides for a clear guide how to do this job, to fumigate effectively. And now this is the answer to the question that we just had on the maximum residue levels of phosphine, or not phosphine, but it's called phosphane and phosphate salts in the commodities. This is provided by the European Regulation 2016, which substituted or amended another regulation, the former regulation of 2005, number 396. But it established a residue levels for commodities after the treatment with phosphine. For example, for maize or for wheat, the maximum limit of phosphine, meaning the phosphine and the salts, and those aluminum or magnesium hydroxide salts in the cargo after fumigation is 0.05 milligrams per kilogram. This is for wheat. For maize, it's slightly more, it's 0.7 milligrams per kilogram. But let's remember that the average dosage of fumigants applied for fumigation is calculated by volume, as I said. For example, 4.5 grams of aluminum phosphide tablets per cubic meter will give you around 6 grams of aluminum phosphide per ton, considering the storage factor. And it means 6 milligrams per kilogram, which is much higher than this level or this level. This automatically means that any fumigants applied in direct or loose pellets in the cargo, they will break this limit because it will contain above this limit. So the only solution is to apply fumigants in packed method, fume sleeves or other residue retaining bags, in order allowing to remove those residues from the cargo after treatment. And this will allow the compliance with this requirement. This is the ROS database, searchable database on notification, which shows few notifications available at this date in different countries. And the actions taken: redispatch, recall from consumers, withdrawal from the markets, quite severe consequences due to presence of aluminum phosphide residues in the commodities. So it proves that the approach to this policy of residue limits is very, very strict. And to complete the final slide, these are the maritime fumigation critical control points, which are generally applied for inland fumigation as well. That if you are fumigating, you need to control that you're using a proper fumigant, or your client, the one who's fumigating for you, is doing the same, using a proper fumigant. And the proper fumigant, for example, for maritime fumigation to Egypt is pre-packed aluminum pellets, not tablets, but pellets, or magnesium phosphide plates, those which react faster or allow quick gas liberation without any delay that depends on the weather or moisture conditions. Then the gas tightness should be checked prior to loading. All ship holds should pass through the proper test. It is normally neglected. This visual inspection does not provide for proper gas tightness of holds, and the IMO recommendations, they say that the proper instrumental checks should be carried out. The minimum dosage, again, it's applicable for tested cargo holds only, and if the hold is leaky, then any dosage will not work properly. So the minimum dosage for tested cargo holds should still remain 1.5 grams and not below that, because due to losses during the voyage, fumigation will not be effective. Gas penetration, as mentioned again in this presentation, if the cargo holds are deeper than 12 meters, then the recirculation should be used. It's a mandatory requirement, should be established for fumigation, for importing fumigated cargoes to Egyptian port. CTP monitoring, concentration time product. With the modern development of the technologies, it is available through mobile monitors that can be used for during fumigation. And if such requirement exists, then the new ships will be built with proper equipment that was mentioned for gas monitoring, or even the simple dosimeter tubes can offer a good, let's say, solution by witnessing that in each cargo hold the proper concentration has been used, and on the roll, for example, the inspector can take out this tube and say whether or not fumigation was effective. Fumigation clearance. It must be mandatory in accordance with many documents that we've mentioned in our presentation, that the fumigant residues should be removed and not remain in the cargo in order to comply with MRL limits. And the clearance procedure and the certificate must be issued after measurement of the gas concentration inside the cargo holds. This is a case that must follow scenario for European, Japanese ports and other ports. I think this must be a rule for Egyptian ports. And the last but not least, professional insurance. That professional insurance can help to comply with all the standards, because the insurance company may provide this insurance based on the compliance and to check through their own inspectors that all the above mentioned steps are followed, and finally offer the refumigation cost guarantee subject to compliance with all these requirements. So professional insurance for fumigation, if required, may help very much in solving any in-transit fumigation problems and inland fumigation problems. And this is it for now. I want to thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.
That was the presentations. We had 5 videos, short videos that we were supposed to show or you these videos, but I believe we are running out of time. You will see now on the data show, the link you can use to see the videos. Any questions? Do you have any questions for the presentation? Do you have any questions? Is it possible to commercially use O3? Commercially, is it possible
O3?
as a fumigant?
Yes,
As a
there were very
fumigator?
serious research carried out recently in respect of O3. It's
As for
proven.
the AccuFume gas, is it affecting on the adult insect and the egg? What about the cost? And is there any residues later from it? AccuFume gas, is it affecting on the adult insect and the egg, or only the insect? And what about the cost of it? And does it produce any residues?
Yes, I got your question. Yes, any fumigants, as I explained earlier, it works against all 4 stages of insects, starting from egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The most easy one to control are 2, larva and adult. For the Cytophilus oryzae, the one you see on the picture now for rice weevil, eggs will require only 3 days to hatch. So within these 3 days, if exposure is longer, then the egg, which is more resistant to any gas, ecofume or clear phosphine, or even O3, which you mentioned, will be affected and will be controlled. While the egg is more resistant, then it hatches, converting to larva, which is breathing much faster because it is moving and it's eating. So it's easier to control. At the same time, the pupa will take a little longer to develop into an adult, but still it starts to breathe. The adult breathes is the easiest stage to control. So any fumigant, ecofume or any other, they control better those stages, the active stages, if I may say so. But the answer to your question is yes, it affects. Regarding the commercial availability, you of course need to connect the manufacturer, and if you need, it is available online. Just Google for it, and it's easy to find. Is that all? Any more questions?
Alex, there was a question about the costs of O3 fumigation, if you ran across it.
Oh, there was a lot of research about O3. None of them confirmed that the O3 has sufficient penetration to be used as a fumigant, as an alternative fumigant to the existing ones, because it does not, it's very light and it does not penetrate deep enough. But it is considered to be eco-friendly and green, if I may say so, for treating the organic commodities. But again, it has a lot of requirements which are hard to comply with. Therefore, treatment with O3 is more problematic comparing to others and more expensive. And this is why it is not widely used. There are just few researchers available, and few companies tried to apply it in practice. I know a few friends of mine who do the research at the moment, but it's probably too early to use it widely on a commercial basis.
Thank you.
Any other question? Is it possible to add a substance that would penetrate the insect with the fumigant to increase the efficacy of the fumigant? Is it possible to add a substance that may irritate or open the spiracles of the insect? Is it possible?
Wood, you were talking about wood treatment or just in general? In general, I will answer in general. The faster insects are moving, the higher is their respiratory rate. It means they breathe more fast. There's a shorter interval between breath in and out. And it's easier to control such insects that are moving comparing to those posing or dormant in the colder times. So this is important to apply the fumigants in a proper, in accordance with the label, in accordance with the manufacturer's regulations. That if you are using, for example, phosphine, it is a good wood penetrator or other commodities comparing to other gases and fumigants. I know there are few researches that are currently running in the United States in relation to ethane dinitrile, which I mentioned, or EDN, which I mentioned at the beginning of presentation. It shows very good results in fumigation of wood against monohamus and other wood borers, which are quite a big issue now around. The higher the temperature, the higher the activity of insects, the easier is the control measures with any of the fumigants. Yeah. So that's mainly the answer to your question, I guess. Hope I answered.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we will wrap now.
لو ما فيش أسئلة تاني يا جماعة هنقفل دلوقتي ورشة العمل إن شاء الله.
If you don't any other questions, we thank you very much for your time. We are going to conclude the workshop now. Thank you a lot for being with us today. We hope you are going to enjoy our lunch in Solana restaurant, next floor, Solana restaurant. We will go to the lobby, take the elevator to the second floor, and the lunch is ready for us. Thanks a lot for you again, and I hope the workshop is useful for you, and we are going to meet again and again.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone, and bye-bye. Alex, for the excellent work.
You liked it?
Yes, dear Islam, Esham, Stephanie, Radwa, and FAO Cairo team, big thank you for your support.
Thank you very much.
It was a good event.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll just need to make sure next time everyone wears a mask.
Not us. You mean gas mask? Fumigation?
No, a surgical mask at the premises.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.